In this video, we continue writing queries from the previous video. This is where we stopped on slide 22. The next query on slide 23 will require us to join 3 tables, also use the distinct keyword, and apply a filter. What UPCA codes were sold in 2012? Order by UPCA code in descending order and include just the code. Okay, we've already learned that the product UPCA code is in the product table. We've already learned that the date of the sale is in the transaction table. But our concern is, are those 2 tables related? And the answer is, they're not. We're going to need a 3rd table to get this done. Let's start by getting UPCA codes. We know where those are. Select UPCA from tProduct, order by UPCA. Does that work? Invalid column UPCA. Extra space in there. Take it out. That seems to work. Okay, we know where the UPC codes are. What else do we need? We need to know what products were sold in 2012. Have to be a detective. Where are the sales of the products? Well, let's look in transaction. Date of transaction. There's the date that the transaction took place, but there's no product in here. All there is are overview, metadata about the transaction, the date, the store where it took place, the person that bought them, the employee that executed the transaction, but we don't know what they bought. Okay, a little more detective work. Here's one called transaction detail. What's in there? In transaction detail is a foreign key relating back to the transaction table and a foreign key relating to the product table. Looks like we're in good shape. We have to somehow tie these 3 tables together. Transaction table, product table, transaction detail table. Now we could do this in any number of ways, but since we already have the product table, what does product have in common? Well, product has a common field with transaction detail. There it is right there. So how about inner join T transaction detail on, well, let's go ahead and put our alias in here. We're going to need them anyway. Product table is P, transaction table will be TD, and let's say P dot product ID equals TD dot product ID. We join those 2 tables together. We want all the records that are common between those 2 tables. And it's always good just to test. We still get what looks like a decent result. All the UPC codes. There are about 60,000 records. That sounds reasonable. But we don't have the dates yet. So what does this result set? What does the joining of the product table and the transaction detail table have in common with the transaction table? Well, the transaction table has a primary key transaction ID. The transaction detail table has a foreign key transaction ID. How about that? So let's do another inner join. Inner join T transaction. Alias that one is T on T dot transaction ID equals TD dot transaction ID. We've joined 3 tables using 2 inner joins. Remember, you can't join more than 2 tables. You can only join exactly 2 tables using 1 inner join, but you can join those 2 to a 3rd table by creating another inner join. We've joined 3 tables together using 2 inner joins. Now we need our filter. We need a where clause. Were sold in 2012. Where year, and the transaction table is aliased to a T dot date of transaction equals 2012. We joined 3 tables. We extracted 1 column from those 3 tables, and we set a filter to limit the results to 2012. Looks like I misspelled something. Taking a closer look, you can see that I misspelled date of transaction. I'll let SQL fix that for me. So far, so good. Does that work? There are my UPC codes. It appears to be reasonably correct. It'd be nice to put some aliases in here for the columns. There's only 1 column. Remember the square brackets. How about now? That looks good. Product UPC-A code is my column heading. The results set is the 1 column that was asked for in the natural language query. But I have a huge problem. Take a close look at the results set. The product UPC code is repeated over and over and over. If I scroll down, the first 29 records are duplicates. No one's going to enjoy reading that. I need to use distinct. If I don't, I'm going to deliver this result set, which is 8,608 rows, but numerous duplicates. Whoever gets this result set then will be frustrated and will probably end up having to remove the duplicates on their own. But we should be doing that because that's the business of a database. That's why we put things in a database, to take them out correctly. We can fix it very easily by putting in, whoops, distinct. We're telling SQL Server that the rows should all be unique. Filter out any duplicate rows. And since the only thing in a row is the APC code, what we're saying is give us only 1 copy of each UPC-A code. Note that there are 8,608 rows in the results set. What do we get after putting in distinct? Typo. P dot. Now we're good. I applied the alias. It's kind of interesting that it didn't want the alias earlier, but now it does. And the result set shrunk to 501 rows. I eliminated about 8,000 duplicate records. You can visually verify that because everything on the screen in the results set appears to be unique. And do I have everything? It said it wants them in descending order. I think I left that out. Order by descending. And there is a deliverable query that answers this question. We were required to join 3 tables. We needed the date of the transaction from one table. We needed the UPC code from another table, but those 2 tables were not related. Therefore, we needed to join a 3rd table to somehow connect those 3 tables together. We did an inner join between transaction detail and product because transaction detail had a foreign key that related to the primary key of the product table. Then we took that whole thing and we joined that to the transaction table because the transaction table primary key is reflected as a foreign key in the transaction detail table. In the slide you can see the solution I came up with, and you will note that the order of the joins is different. We started with transaction, joined that to transaction detail, then took that result and joined that to product. The order of the joins doesn't matter. Whatever is intuitive to you at this point is fine. I started with product because I wanted the UPC column from the product table, so that was intuitive to me. Either way you do it is fine. I got the same answer on the slide as I did in SSMS. 501 unique rows, 501 unique UPC codes. Notice that some of this is just being a good detective. Some of this is studying the structure of the database, understanding the concept of a foreign key, and finding the foreign keys that you need to get the information required to write the query. I needed a value from the product table. I needed a value from the transaction table. Those 2 things do not directly relate. They do not have a common field, but if I insert another table in the middle, I can get with the information that I need by doing 2 inner joins. Let's look at the final query in this slideshow. What product UPC-A codes are manufactured by Conagra Foods or American Licorice, ascending by UPC-A code, just the code? Wow, this looks very familiar. Wonder where I've seen this before. Oh yeah. Query 3. What UPC-A codes are manufactured by Conagra Foods, ascending by UPC-A code, just the code? We did that one. It's almost identical to this. Boy, I wish I still had a copy. Hey, I do. I did this already. Let's start from this. Copy. New query window. Paste. There's the one UPC code manufactured by Conagra Foods. We did it before. We did it a few minutes ago in the previous slide, in the previous lecture. What do I have to do to make this correct now for query 5? I have to add some logic to include American Licorice as a manufacturer. That shouldn't be too hard. I can grab that. And I can say or m.manufacturer equals single quotes American Licorice. Uh-oh. Is there still only one? Is it possible that American Licorice doesn't make any of the products in our database? Now I'm really stuck. Do I search through the entire product database looking for anything that might be made by American Licorice? Do I assume this is correct and walk away? Do I ship it to the customer without verifying it? I don't have any confidence in this query right now. And the reason I don't have any confidence is because it gives the same result with or without the or. What do? The first thing I want to do is verify the spelling of this. Is that spelled correctly? Is there a manufacturer called American Licorice? Let's look at the manufacturer table. Fortunately, these tables are relatively small because I didn't want to cause you too much grief. And look at the very first row. It's not American Licorice, it's American Licorice Co. Can I copy that? American Licorice Co. That looks better. Now I've got 3 UPC codes because I provided 2 manufacturers, and I feel a lot better about myself. Just because the customer gives you American Licorice doesn't mean the spelling is correct, doesn't mean there's not a company at the end, doesn't mean there's not an LTD at the end or an LLC, or there's a the at the beginning, or it doesn't mean that there's necessarily a space in there. You have to visually verify by looking at the data exactly what the customer meant when they said this to you. There might be 5 companies called American Licorice. You really don't know. If we were a little bit more nervous, we could wrap this in wildcards, and we're saying, as you saw in the previous assignment, anything that has the word American space licorice in the manufacturer name. This percent sign is a wildcard. So match anything at the beginning, match anything at the end. And it doesn't like that. Do you see what the problem is? The syntax of the string is correct, but you don't use an equal sign, you use like, don't you? Now I'm back where I was before. I built in a little safety net for myself then. I'm saying anything with the words American space licorice in the manufacturer name should be considered a match. This puts you in a tough spot because you really don't have enough understanding of your data, and you rarely will, to know how to handle these situations. And again, you go back and ask. You say, Mr. Customer, do you want every manufacturer with the word American licorice in it? Or do you want a specific manufacturer with the word American licorice in it? You have to ask for clarification. There's nothing wrong with that. This looks like a good solution then for that last query. It gives us 3 results. They appear to be correct. If we want to know more, we could add another column to this just to make ourselves feel better. How about M dot manufacturer? Now there's 2 columns. And it's, maybe I could spell it right. What do we get now? Good. We have a little more confidence then. We can see that the manufacturers appear to line up with the information that we are looking for. And since the query says just the code, we can go ahead and remove the manufacturer before we ship this query. And we're back to here again. And we're not, because I didn't delete the comma. There we go. Always check your work. Always execute your queries before you submit them. Always visually verify and intuitively verify that they appear to be correct.